Hi everyone, and welcome back to another Voiceflow tutorial video. Today we're going to be going over flows and flow blocks. Now the best way to think about flows is it allows you to break up a large complex project into smaller, more manageable sections, almost like a file system. So as an example, if you had, let's say 150 blocks making up an interactive story skill, and it was all on this one canvas right here, it would be really complicated, really messy, and kind of hard to manage. So what flows allow you to do is to break up that big interactive story into different sections that will all be held on a different canvas, but all part of the same Alexa skill. And so this allows you to build very big, very complex projects or very small and compact ones very easily by modularizing everything into this file system. Okay, so for the sake of this demo, what we're going to do is essentially have a small interactive story made up of 3 different flows. Now, the best way to think about what a flow is, it's anything that you can see on the canvas right here. So anytime you're on the canvas, you are on a flow. And so this is my main menu flow for the interactive story we're going to build. And essentially the user is going to be asked, do you want chapter 1 or chapter 2? And then they're then going to choose between 2 different chapters. And rather than build out both chapter 1 and chapter 2 on this same canvas, which might get really messy if they're quite big, we're instead going to lead the user into a different flow for chapter 1 and a different flow for chapter 2. So let's do that. So going into our blocks menu here, you can see we have the flow block down here in the advanced section. And so we'll pull 2 of these out and let's link them up. There we go. Okay, great. So now we have our basic structure done. And now the best way to think about this is that each one of these flow blocks has its own project inside of it. And so we can actually do here is when you go onto the flow block, you'll see we can either select an existing flow or we can create a new flow. So what this is asking is if we want to use an existing flow, which means let's say we make a chapter 1 and we want to use it again for chapter 2 but slightly modify it. Rather than having to build everything from scratch, which might be a lot of work, we can instead copy an existing flow we've already built and use it again in a different flow. And then we can even do some modifications on it. And so this makes it really easy to build out functionality and then be able to use it all over in your project without having to rebuild everything from scratch. But I don't have anything built for this, so instead we're going to create a new flow. There we go. So we are now in a new flow, and you can see at the top here, it even says the name of the flow that we are in. So if I go over to our project structure over here, you'll see underneath of root, and root is the main menu of your skill. It cannot be renamed. It is always sort of the highest level. Underneath of root, root now leads into new flow. And so let's actually rename this to chapter 1. And we'll click on this to save the changes. And let's just build a really quick little chapter 1 thing in here, and we'll say chapter 1. Nice, super amazing interactive story. So now what we can do is we can navigate between our flows by clicking on the level that we want to go to. So I'm going to click on root, and we're going to go back up to the root of our flow. So now you can see this is the root. In the chapter 1, we can enter the flow, which would allow us to go back into chapter 1, as you see there, and we'll go back up the root. Okay, great. So that now allows us to hold an entire project within of our inside of our chapter 1 flow. And now let's do chapter 2. So I'll create a new flow here. I'm going to rename this one chapter 2. Now I will quickly add, similar to what I did in the chapter 1, I'm going to add a speak block which says chapter 2. Chapter 2. Yes. I'm going to go back up to root, and you'll see, there we go, we have the user is going to choose which chapter they want to go to, and then it will go either to chapter 1 or chapter 2. Now what happens after this flow ends, so for example this chapter 1 flow, after it hits the last block in the flow, it's going to go up a level, and it's going to continue to do that until you're back on the root, and the skill will end when it's on the last block of the root flow. So your skill will never end within a subflow. It's always going to try to go back up to the root if it can't find another block to go to. And then once it's on the root, the last block on the root that's not connected will end your skill. Now, there are ways to get around this if you do want to end within a subflow, which is a flow within another flow. So, for example, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 are both subflows here. And there are ways to end the skill, such as by using an exit block, and you can watch the video on that. However, for the sake of this video, just know that within your subflows, when there's no more blocks left in the flow, then it will try to go up a level to the root flow and come out of where it went into the flow block. So if Chapter 1 ends, it's going to come out right here, and it's going to go to the next block. So that way you can link up many different flows together, and you can create some really complex project structures. Now, you can also have flows within flows within flows. So for example, within Chapter 1, if there was Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, you could do another layer deep, and it would be organized on this project menu structure, and you'd be able to sort of check it out and see it. Okay, great. So that is a very high-level overview of flows. If you have any more questions, there are lots more videos on flows and sort of more advanced functionalities. So if you have any more questions, feel free to watch those other videos. This is just meant to be a very high overview of what flows are, how they work, and how you can get started with them. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you in the next video.